Hello everybody, it's your favorite West Virginia now in space here, and one of the things you hear a lot in writing tips, writing communities, and just the story crafting community in general is the idea of writing for yourself, writing things you find interesting in order to keep your passion and in order to keep your drive for the story, and nobody wants to write something they don't care about, isn't that true? But after all, most people hate writing essays for a reason. But the thing is, there's a counterbalance to this, and falling too far into the writing for yourself will actually hurt your ability to make good stories, well, not permanently, but it can really hurt your ability as a writer to tell stories that others would enjoy. So it's important to remember how to write for others. What does that mean exactly? Well, let's get into it. Now, of course, when I mean writing for others, I don't mean necessarily that you have a boss that you are directly beholden to telling you or advising you or something like that. I don't mean like that. What I mean is by writing for others is writing stories that others would find interesting. And this may sound weird if you're not already accustomed with the idea, but it's kind of true. You see, at its core, as writers, storytellers, it is our job or mission, however you're going to call that, to craft and bring joy to the world. That is our thing, to make stories that others enjoy, and by that we bring emotion and interest in introspection and other such things, blah blah blah. However, the thing that people forget, at least in my opinion nowadays, is they write too much for themselves. Now, granted, this sounds, like I said, it sounds weird, but the main gimmick of this thought process is that when you try to write for something, you are at its core writing for others, because the stories in your head just exist in your head, you know what I mean? And you can write them down maybe to craft them out to help you explain depending on how your mind works, but ultimately at the end of the day, you don't tell others your story unless you are trying to entertain them on some level. And I don't even necessarily mean entertainment as in like how some would describe it, popcorn story. I can mean entertainment in any form, horror or deep intellectual thought or whatever your story is trying to convey, or writing in general. However, if you're writing it down or showing someone your story, that means you want others to enjoy it. Now, you hopefully also enjoy it, of course, but that is not the primary directive in this moment. Whether you write stories for simple cash profit or fame, or actually to inspire intellectual honesty, or just to bring some creativity to the world, fundamentally, you are writing for others. You are the producer and you want people to consume your work. This is a very simplistic way, admittedly, but there is truth to it, because there is, in many ways, little value to a story that others don't enjoy. Because you can craft a great piece of work for yourself. You can create a truly miraculous story that, that makes you really happy and you love it and you love every detail in it. But if everyone else hates it, everyone else finds it objectively boring or lame or whatever, then it's not a good story for others. And granted, you can write for yourself, that's fine, I do it all the time. But fundamentally, if you are trying to inspire others with your creativity or your writing or your videos or whatever, you need to keep other people in mind. You are trying to do something to help others, to give things to others, and if others do not find it enjoying, then you on some level have failed. And this is a hard pill to swallow, because it's really easy to hear, write for yourself, write what you enjoy, do what you want to do, but if you are trying to make other people enjoy your work, that is not a sustainable thought process. You cannot go through the entire creativity process thinking only of yourself. You must think of what the end consumer, the enjoyer, the listener, the reader, or whatever will fundamentally enjoy from your work. Forgetting this will permanently hurt your stories until you learn this lesson. But okay, you say, random person with 350 subscribbles, what does this all mean exactly? How do you go about making stories for others? Well, I have some thoughts and ideas, of course. My major one I would give, me personally, is that working within a genre can be very helpful. Because fundamentally, if you are writing, say, a hard-boiled noir crime detective story, then you are going to attract people who are interested in hard-boiled noir crime detective stories. And there's nothing wrong with this, because generally speaking, people like certain things. And genres are merely just collections of stories that have certain things in common that can be helpful for people trying to find something. It's kind of like, in a broader sense, like if someone says, oh, you like story A? Well, story B, C, and D are also like story A. that's what a genre is in many ways at its fundamental core. Just a way of grouping stories that have similar characteristics. And therefore, by kind of working within a genre, you will naturally kind of curve to the idea that your story should be more enjoyable to people because that genre is enjoyable. And most stories naturally fall into a genre, so this generally does not require very much work, but it can sometimes, especially in commercial works, find ways to help convey it in your story sometimes. Sometimes stories can be hard to convey easily, and finding a good elevator pitch can really be helpful. But, that's kind of obvious and probably really touching into a different issue. But another one, for more broadly, is simply seek others' opinion. This may sound weird, but seeking others' opinion is, well, kind of helpful in all this. Because, if you ask someone, does this story sound interesting? Does my draft look interesting? Does this or that seem good? Then you will, on some level, help. Now, granted, it's often very helpful to get fresh eyes every now and again because of how people can form. And, of course, you might want to get some people your opinion you really trust, because sometimes, say, friends or family can be, not always accurate because, they have a more personal connection to you. But also, sometimes you want a more personal connection, so that person might be more bluntly honest. Sometimes it's, like I said, you just need to find a good support network and that kind of thing. And sometimes just getting test audiences can really help. There's a reason why a lot of stories have testing phases where they release a story to a select amount of people to really get feedback. This is extremely common in video games, which of course is not the only place it's used, obviously, but it's a good example to work with. Fundamentally, once again, if you show your story to people and say, do you find this interesting? And people say yes, you're on the right track. But of course, all this is to say, this is all broad stuff. But what you really have to do is get into the mindset of this. You have to really think to yourself, am I making a story that other people would like? And this isn't so much to ignore your own desires, because you are a person. We are making stories for people, and you are a person. Therefore, you should naturally be someone in tune with what other people want. And in many cases, in my personal experience, I make stories because I see there should be a story about this kind of thing, and there just isn't. And oftentimes, when I point out some of these things to people, they'll be like, oh yeah, that sounds interesting. Why isn't that a thing yet? And so, especially with that kind of mentality, you're also kind of fulfilling a need in a way. You are fulfilling a desire and something that people want. You know what I mean? That by filling kind of in a gap of what they want. But of course, also one of the biggest things also is just writing a good story. And that's way harder to do than I could possibly explain. And that's because I'm not the best writer, but I'm trying to help people out here, I think we can all help each other out here in our quest to make better stories. Because at the end of the day, we don't just want to keep our stories to ourselves. We want to make stuff that everyone can enjoy, or at least more people than just us, even if it's just a close friends or family. But ultimately, that's just my opinion. What do you think? What do you think I got this right? Do you think I got it wrong? Do you have any tips for how to do it, or such like that? Anyway, please comment, like, and all that jazz down below. Subscribe to become a subscriber, and I'll see you all next time. Yeah. Hey, why don't you hit that sub button? You're gonna become a subscriber. Get to see my content quicker. Wouldn't that be nice? I bet so.